What if Yoda went with Obi Wan to Kamino? What would have happened then? We pick up with Anakin and Obi Wan standing before the council after the second attempt on Senator Amidala's life. Let's begin. The afternoon light filtered through the temple's spires, creating a lattice of luminescence across the council chamber's meditation circles. Master Yoda remained motionless in his seat, the worn ridges of his Geimer stick pressing against his palm as Obi-Wan Kenobi presented his findings. The assassin employed Kohon worms, Obi-Wan explained, his crisp Coruscanti accent carrying notes of concern. During pursuit, she revealed herself to be a Claudite shapeshifter. However, before interrogation proved possible, he extended his hand, revealing a dart that gleamed with dangerous precision. A second assailant, wearing armor of Mandalorian design, eliminated her using this. Mace Windu's posture shifted minutely, and Senator Amidala maintains Count Dooku orchestrated these attempts. The name stirred ancient memories in Yoda's consciousness. The Force murmured with discordant harmonies, a crescendo that had been building since his former apprentice had renounced his vows. The ancient master's eyes drifted closed, his awareness sifting through the accumulated wisdom of centuries, seeking echoes of the student who had once walked these halls. "Accompany you on this investigation, I shall," Yoda declared, his words bringing stillness to the chamber. The gentle tap of his Gemmer stick punctuated his rise. My pupil, Dooku was. If orchestrated this scheme he has, confront this reality, we must. Anakin Skywalker's fingers brushed against his lightsaber, his apprehension about leaving the Senator's protection evident in every line of his bearing. Yoda studied him with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of generations. Guard Senator Amidala, you will, young Skywalker. Faith in your capabilities, the Council places. Master Windu leaned forward in his seat, his measured tones complementing Yoda's directive. You will escort the Senator to Naboo. Travel as refugees to avoid detection. No registered transport vessels. The fewer beings who know of your movements, the better. His gaze held Anakin's with calm certainty. This assignment requires discretion above all else. Anakin bowed his head in acknowledgement, his youth apparent in the eager set of his shoulders, even as he maintained proper Jedi decorum. Yes, Master Windu, I understand. The chamber emptied gradually, leaving Yoda and Obi-Wan to commence their inquiry. The temple's analysis labs yielded nothing, despite their array of sophisticated equipment and specialized droids. The clinical precision of their methodology produced only mounting questions. I know someone, Obi-Wan mused, his fingers tracing the outline of his beard. In Coco Town. His methods lack convention, but his expertise in exotic armaments remains unequaled. Yoda's ears lifted with curiosity. Guide us there. You should. Their path to Dex's diner cut through Coruscant's middle levels, where the immaculate facades of the upper city dissolved into a tapestry of lived experience. Vehicles bearing the patina of frequent use wove between structures, while beings of countless species navigated their way beneath the glow of holographic advertisements. The diner stood as a testament to pragmatic durability, its metallic surfaces bearing the polish of countless meals served. The aroma of sizzling nerf and imported spices permeated the establishment. Dexter Jettster's resonant chuckle preceded his emergence, his quartet of arms extending in genuine welcome at the sight of Obi-Wan. His expression brightened further upon noticing the diminutive Grand Master at his friend's side. Now this, Dex intoned, his apron bearing the evidence of his culinary craft, must be quite the situation. As Obi-Wan presented the dart, Yoda observed their exchange with measured attention. The Force often manifested in unexpected venues, and here, amid the mingled sense of comfort food and industrial cleaner, it resonated with possibility. Dex examined the dart with professional scrutiny, his features settling into serious lines. Kaminoan craftsmanship, he pronounced, deadly efficient, but artful, their signature style. Yoda approached the diner's viewport, observing the intricate patterns of transit between the buildings. Kamino. The designation rippled through his awareness, carrying undertones of significance. The presence of his former apprentice seemed to expand in his thoughts, pieces of an intricate design beginning to align, though its final configuration remained obscured. His own image gazed back from the transparent steel, bearing the accumulated insights of 8 centuries. Yet despite such vast experience, he perceived they stood at the threshold of revelations that would fundamentally alter the Republic's foundation. Limited, our time grows, Yoda murmured, turning to address Obi-Wan and their host. To Kamino our path leads. The temple archives cast their eternal blue glow across the reading chambers as Master Jocasta Nu brought up the star charts of the Outer Rim. Obi-Wan provided the coordinates from Dex's intelligence, and the holographic display zoomed to the appropriate sector quadrant. Yoda's expression remained placid as he studied the star map, but his ears lifted slightly, a tell that Obi Wan had learned to recognize as significant. The ancient master hobbled closer to the display. Curious this is, Yoda mused, reaching up to trace a particular region of empty space. A void where substance should exist. Notice the gravitational patterns, do you? Jocasta Nu stepped forward, her brow furrowed. According to the archive data, that sector should be empty. Master Yoda. No. Yoda's voice carried quiet certainty. Deleted, these files have been, by one who knew our systems well. He gestured to the surrounding stars. See how they drift? Pulled toward something unseen they are. Present, this Kamino system is. Hidden from us, it has been. Obi Wan and Jocasta exchanged glances as the implication settled. Only a Jedi could have accessed and altered the archive data with such precision. At the center of gravity's pull, find Kamino, we will, Yoda declared, already turning toward the archive's exit. Their arrival on Kamino brought sheets of endless rain and cities that rose from turbulent seas like luminous chalices. The Kaminoan Prime Minister, Lama Su, received them with the fluid grace characteristic of his species. His elongated neck curved as he regarded the diminutive Grand Master with evident fascination. Master Sifo Dyas assured us the Jedi Order would find this army indispensable, Lama Su intoned, leading them through pristine corridors. The army he commissioned meets all specifications. 200,000 units ready, with 1 million more well underway. The revelation suspended between them like crystallized time. Yoda's ears lifted marginally, the only outward sign of his surprise. Obi-Wan maintained his diplomatic composure, though the Force rippled with his carefully controlled shock. The cloning facilities stretched endlessly, containment units housing perfect replicas at various stages of development. But it was the genetic template's quarters that drew Yoda's keenest attention. The Force signature within spoke of lethal precision and something else, something younger but identical in its core resonance. The living quarters were modestly furnished, but Yoda's attention fixed immediately on the adjacent storage chamber, where the distinctive Mandalorian armor lay in the corner. Components scattered across the floor, as if hastily removed. Jango Fett turned to his son and murmured something in their private Fett code, a method of communication known only to father and son. Young Boba nodded once and sealed the armor room's door, the mechanism clicking shut with quiet finality. Yoda absorbed every detail, the way Fett kept himself between them and his son, the subtle signs of someone well-versed in avoiding direct answers without resorting to lies. The quarters suddenly felt confining, the space between Hunter and Jedi charged with potential energy. Yoda withdrew the dart, letting it catch the light from Kamino's perpetual storm. Familiar to you, this weapon is? A heartbeat of silence. Through the Force, Yoda sensed the bounty hunter's rapid calculations, the confined space of the quarters, the presence of 2 Jedi, the boy watching from the corner. Fett's Force signature shifted subtly, as survival instinct gave way to paternal pragmatism. His eyes flickered briefly to Boba, and in that moment, Yoda felt the hunter's decision crystallize. Help you, we can, Yoda offered, his words carrying the weight of centuries of negotiation. But answers, we require. Fett's expression hardened. Count Dooku hired me. The truth of it resonated in the Force like a struck bell. Yoda closed his eyes briefly, feeling the Council's dismissal of Amidala's accusations replay in his memory. Their certainty about Dooku, his former Padawan, had blinded them to possibilities they should have considered. More to say, have you? Yoda prompted, but he already knew. Fett's calculated cooperation confirmed what the Force had been whispering since their arrival. This clone army, the assassination attempts, Dooku's involvement, all threads in a tapestry whose full pattern remained obscured, but whose implications generated ripples of concern in the Force itself. Fett straightened, his composure unwavering even in confession. You know him as Count Dooku. He came to me under another name, Tyrannus. Recruited me for the cloning program first. The assassination contract came later. His eyes flickered to Boba for the briefest moment. Yoda absorbed each word, feeling their truth resonate through the Force. The pieces aligned with disturbing clarity. Sifo Dyas' army, commissioned a decade ago. The timing matched perfectly with Dooku's departure from the Order. His former Padawan had been laying these foundations even before his public break with the Jedi. Dooku is on Geonosis, Fett continued, building something big, droid factories running day and night. The Geonosians work constantly, and ships from the Commerce Guild, Banking Clan, Trade Federation, they all come and go. A slight pause. That's all I know. The rest isn't my business. The Force swirled with implications. Yoda could sense Obi-Wan's mounting concern beside him as the scale of what they'd uncovered became clear. Not just an assassination attempt, but the groundwork for something far larger. The clone army on Kamino, the droid factories on Geonosis, 2 vast military forces being assembled in secret. "Move quickly, we must," Yoda said, his words carrying quiet urgency. "Contact the Council immediately, we must. The full strength of the Order, needed it will be. Only together can we face Dooku." The bounty hunter's shoulders tensed minutely. Yoda turned back to him, ears lifting slightly. "Fear not, Fett. Your cooperation, noted it has been. Your son's safety, guaranteed it will be." When Yoda sought clarification from the Prime Minister, Lama Su revealed that after Sifo Dyas's communication ceased, they had continued working with another Jedi, who called himself Tyrannus. "We had no knowledge this was the same individual as Count Dooku," the Prime Minister added, with characteristic Kaminoan precision. Though his words rang true in the Force, Yoda sensed calculated omissions in the account. With more Jedi arriving, he would assign them to investigate this disturbing revelation. Beyond the chamber's windows, Kamino's endless storm raged on, much like the gathering clouds of conflict that now seemed to loom over the galaxy. But here, in this moment, they had gained something precious, a chance to act before those clouds could break. Within hours, Jedi transports arrived at Kamino. A contingent of masters took custody of Jango and Boba Fett for transport to Coruscant, where a thorough interrogation would reveal any deeper layers to this conspiracy. Meanwhile, other Jedi began a comprehensive investigation with the Kaminoan leadership, probing the circumstances of Sifo Dyas's clone army commission. Yoda stood at the viewport of the Kaminoan facility, watching the battalions of clone troopers assembling below. Time was not their ally. Dooku's plans had to be stopped before they could reach fruition, and the Jedi had no choice but to use the army that circumstance had provided them. A tense discussion had unfolded in the Kaminoan command center, with council members debating the implications of deploying an army without Senate approval. Yoda contemplated the crystallizing moment, aware their decision would ripple through the Republic's future. The Force whispered warnings of darkness ahead, but also opportunity. He explained that Dooku's threat demanded immediate action. They had discovered his plans and held the element of surprise, a strategic advantage that could prevent years of bloodshed if wielded decisively. Yoda would accept full responsibility before the Senate, but preventing Dooku's separatist movement from gaining momentum took precedence. The Grand Master turned back to the viewport, his decision made. The assault force assembled with precision that would have impressed even the Kaminoans. Vessels emerged from hyperspace above Geonosis, their arrival carefully timed to avoid detection. The main force held position in high orbit, while 4 ships descended with practiced stealth. Masters Yoda, Windu, Mundi, and Kenobi, tracking both the largest technological signature on the planet's surface and Dooku's distinct Force presence. The spire rose from the desert like a monolith of secrets. Inside, following electronic signatures and Force impressions, they discovered a gathering that confirmed their worst fears. Count Dooku presided over a meeting of the galaxy's most powerful economic forces. Sandhill, representing the banking clan, Wat Tambor of the Techno Union, and Newt Gunray, whose voice carried clearly through their observation point. "Senator Amidala must be eliminated," Gunray insisted, his agitation evident. "You promised me this, Dooku. The Trade Federation demands satisfaction." "The droid armies will soon be ready," Dooku responded smoothly. "Then such small-scale eliminations will be unnecessary." Master Windu's hand moved to his comm unit, signaling the waiting Jedi forces. The 4 masters dropped into the chamber simultaneously, lightsabers igniting in a spectrum of deadly light. Poggle the Lesser lurched toward a control panel, but Windu's Force grip crushed it before his clawed hand could make contact. Dooku's hand moved toward his curved saber, but his eyes swept the chamber, taking in his opponents with a duelist precision. Before him stood not only Yoda, his former master whose skills remained unmatched even after centuries, but also Mace Windu, whose mastery of Vaapad made him nearly invincible in combat. Add to that Ki-Adi-Mundi's exceptional blade work and Obi Wan's defensive mastery, and Dooku knew that even his refined Makashi style would find no opening. His hand fell away from his weapon as the sound of gunships and hundreds of boots echoed through the spire. One by one, the Separatist leaders raised their hands in surrender. Master Ki-Adi-Mundi immediately took charge of the prisoners. With a contingent of knights and clone troopers as escort, he shepherded Dooku, Gunray, and the other Separatist leaders toward the waiting transports. The Jedi Council had been explicit. These architects of potential war needed to be secured on Coruscant without delay. No chances could be taken with their network of influence still potentially active across the galaxy. Later, as Ki-Adi-Mundi supervised the prisoners' transport, clone scanners detected movement in the tunnels below. The warning through the Force came moments before General Grievous erupted from a hidden passage. 2 knights fell to his lightning assault, but the confined space worked against the cyborg's usual tactics. Surrounded by Jedi and clone troops with no room for his signature spinning attacks, Grievous found himself systematically dismembered, his cybernetic limbs scattered across the tunnel floor as binders secured what remained of his form. The discovery of a cyborg general specifically designed to kill Jedi added yet another disturbing layer to what they'd prevented. A war years in the making stopped just before it could begin. The Republic Judiciary Central Detention Center's maximum security wing held Dooku as Republic law demanded. Even Force users of his stature required federal custody before any transfer to Jedi jurisdiction. Despite the Force suppressing restraints and the loss of his elegant cape, the former Count of Sereno transformed the Stark interrogation chamber into something approaching a noble's receiving room through bearing alone. Yoda's arrival prompted what felt more like a performance than an interrogation. Dooku spoke of the Sith Lord with aristocratic deflections and calculated hints, each response wrapped in layers of condescension. His revelations about Darth Sidious's control of the Republic carried the satisfaction of someone who knew his words would echo long after he was gone. 3 days later, Dooku was found dead in his cell, his cervical vertebrae crushed in the distinctive pattern of a Force choke. The security recordings showed nothing. Once again, the identity of Darth Sidious slipped through the Jedi's grasp like smoke through fingers. In death, as in life, Dooku remained true to his warped ideals, taking Palpatine's secret to his grave in the belief that sometimes the old must be destroyed for the new to flourish. The trials of the Separatist leaders dominated the HoloNet for months. Under questioning, Newt Gunray and his associates revealed that while Darth Sidious had been one of their leaders, they had never seen his true face. Their testimony of shadowy meetings and layers of deception, combined with Dooku's final claim that Sidious controlled the Republic itself, left the Jedi in a troubling position. If both accounts held truth, then the Sith Lord's influence reached into every corner of galactic power, yet somehow remained invisible to those tasked with finding him. But it was the discovery of the Death Star plans that changed everything. When the Geonosian designs became public, the galaxy recoiled in collective horror. The concept of a weapon capable of destroying entire planets struck at something fundamental in the galactic psyche. Species that had survived their own nuclear ages, civilizations that remembered ancient wars, all recognized this as a line that could not be crossed. Poggle the Lesser's execution for crimes against galactic civilization sent shockwaves through the Separatist movement. Former supporters couldn't distance themselves quickly enough from what the media dubbed the Planet Killer Project. Systems that had contemplated joining the Separatists now publicly reaffirmed their loyalty to the Republic, fearing any association with those who would conceive such a weapon. Senator Amidala's impassioned speeches in the Senate connected the dots between militarization and escalation, arguing that the very atmosphere of impending conflict had led to the development of such an abomination. The Separatist movement, already crippled by the capture of its leadership, found itself politically radioactive. No one dared advocate for independence when it meant being linked to attempted planetary genocide. With the Separatist crisis effectively ended, there was no longer any justification for the Military Creation Act. The bill died in committee, its supporters unwilling to be seen as advocating for the same militarization that had bred the Death Star plans. Without the outbreak of war, Chancellor Palpatine never received his emergency powers, and when his term limit approached, he had no choice but to step down and return to Naboo. As for the clone army, after Jango Fett had revealed Tyrannus as Dooku in front of Master Yoda, the Kaminoans found themselves in an increasingly precarious position. Lama Su and Taun Wei, concerned about potential legal repercussions, initially hesitated to share everything they knew. It was only after Yoda and the Strike Force had departed for Geonosis that they finally revealed the full scope of Tyrannus' involvement. Each clone had been implanted with a biochip designed to enforce compliance with 150 contingency orders he had provided. The Kaminoans, now clearly victims of Dooku's manipulation rather than willing participants, readily complied with the Jedi's request to remove these chips. Though the Jedi never discovered the full nature of the biochips, they sensed malicious intent within them. With no war, clone production stopped. The production lines fell silent, growth chambers emptied. The existing clones, freed from their hidden programming, faced the challenge of finding their place in a galaxy that had no war for them to fight. Many found their way into private security firms, their training making them highly sought after by corporations and planetary defense forces. The Kaminoans, ever pragmatic, simply added the experience to their catalog of successful projects, though legislation soon passed strictly regulating the creation of clone armies. On Coruscant, meanwhile, Anakin and Padme conducted what they believed to be a clandestine romance, now free of any war affecting them. They darted through the federal district in disguise. Her in a hood that somehow made her more conspicuous. Him practicing what he clearly thought was subtle behavior by using the Force to arrange accidental meetings. The Jedi Council politely pretended not to notice. Years passed. Though thwarted in instigating a galactic war, Palpatine refused to abandon his quest for power. The loss of the Clone Army, the collapse of the Separatist movement, and the death of Dooku were merely setbacks in his immortal game. From his villa on Naboo, far from the Republic's scrutiny, he turned to older, darker arts. Experimenting with essence transfer techniques his master Plagueis had arrogantly dismissed. If he could not destroy the Jedi through armies, he would strike at their chosen one directly. When the time felt right, he reached out to Skywalker, who remained a celebrated hero on Naboo since destroying the Trade Federation control ship as a child. Anakin found the former Chancellor in his lakeside villa, seemingly frail but still carrying that grandfatherly warmth that had once made him such a trusted mentor. As they spoke of old times, Palpatine gathered his power for what he believed would be his masterwork, possessing the body of the Chosen One himself. What better way to corrupt the Force's designs than to wear its champion like a suit of flesh? But the Force itself had other plans. As Palpatine launched his spiritual assault, he found himself not confronting merely Anakin's consciousness, but the very will of the Force itself. The same cosmic power that had orchestrated Anakin's birth now moved to protect his chosen vessel. Just as Darth Bane had failed to possess his apprentice Xana centuries before, Palpatine found his essence scattered and shattered against the metaphysical equivalent of a durasteel wall. In the end, the former Chancellor's body simply stopped. The medical droids would later record it as natural causes, the end of a distinguished career in public service. Only Anakin knew the truth, though even he didn't fully understand what had happened. He had felt something try to invade his mind, felt the Force rise up within him like a tide, and then nothing. The Chosen One, created by the Force to counter Plagueis' manipulations of life itself, had fulfilled his purpose. Not with lightsabers or armies, but by simply being what it was. A door that swung only one way, through which the last great Sith Lord effectively destroyed himself. Master Yoda was arrested for creating a youngling fight club.